Millions of Americans would not lose the insurance they were promised they could keep. Millions more would not see their premiums skyrocket. We've got Dr. Ben Carson joining us right now. Dr. Carson, what do you think?
Well, I think the president is an excellent campaigner, and he certainly knows how to paint a picture that's very rosy and to neglect all the problematic parts. I would simply say that if the plan is so good, why force everybody into it? Think about many years ago when automobiles first came out. A lot of people were very opposed to automobiles, and they say, I'll stick with my horse any day. But, the government didn't come along and say, everybody has to buy an automobile. They just allowed things to happen. People did eventually say, yeah, your automobiles are pretty cool, and they kept improving. Why do you have to force people to do something if, in fact, it is so good? So these are things that we have to think about. I think our founding fathers would be horrified if they came back and they saw a situation where the government says to individual citizens, you have to do this. You have to use your money, and you have to do this. This is certainly not, what was intended in a free state. And he did, to his credit, he said, we have fundamental differences. He obviously believes in big government taking care of problems. There are a lot of Americans who actually believe in individualism, who believe in responsibility. Doesn't mean that those people don't care about anybody else, In fact, America has a history of being the most generous nation in the world. And the richest people here who were criticized by the Europeans, instead of hoarding money, built the infrastructure that allowed us to develop the most powerful middle class in the world. They built universities, they built foundations, they built the infrastructure of the nation. America is different, and let's not allow ourselves to be cast in the mold of other types of countries which I don't think are exceptional as we are.
And by the way, if you have problems with this law, it's not because you're not a patriot, you don't want to cover those as pre-existing conditions, or you don't want kids on policies longer or whatever. The fact of the matter is that it's the way this is being dispensed and the way it's rolling out and the costly nature of it, and the fact that people have been promised that they could keep their doctor, now they can't keep their doctor, they can keep their coverage, now they can't keep their coverage. I guess what I was itching to hear, Doctor, is the president say, we got that one wrong. I don't expect him to say we lied about that. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He didn't know that would be the case. But when Steny Hoyer only yesterday, the #2 ranking Democrat in the House, is saying, truth be known, we did know some people would lose their coverage. And then you say, well, you never lose your coverage because you're transitioning to something else. Truth be known, that transitioning was going to result in a much higher premium Americans are going to have to pay. I was waiting for that moment that we didn't quite spill all the beans to you in order to sell this. We didn't tell you that it would just be a few Americans who would be paying more, and more than a few Americans who would be losing their doctors,
Well, what's interesting is, we're talking about the glitches in the rollout right now, but I guarantee you in a few months it'll be something else, and then it'll be something else. I mean, just think about it logically. If they're having this much trouble having 3 years to prepare the rollout, how in the world are they going to handle millions of people's health care? Just wait and see. That's all I have to say.
Well, that's a very good point to say. Not that just the time preparing for this, but then there's a new attack line here that I found interesting, and it continues a blame game here that I just think gets old when I hear it with this healthcare law. That the reason why so many people are not getting the benefit of this, and this is a point I want to pick up with former Senator Scott Brown, also in Massachusetts, this idea that it's Republican governors who are fighting this, and half in Congress who are still fighting this, that's the reason why. Scott Brown, that I found to be just a whole new opening line in the blame game. In other words, you, Mr. President, have the problem with this site that you had 3 years to get up and running and can't. You, Mr. President, was the person who said that you would not be seeing Americans lose their coverage, but are. And yet it's now a new line of attack that those balking Republican governors are the reason we're in the pickle we're in.
Well, Neil, can you hear me okay there?
I can, sir.
Great, thank you. Well, first of all, I'm glad the president came to Boston. As you know, it's John Adams' birthday, and John Adams said, facts are, what did he say? He said, facts are stubborn things. and the fact that the president was there misleading the Massachusetts health care plan, my blood was boiling. It's so different than what they're proposing in Washington. And to put out these half-truths and try to have the American people think, oh, it's great, everything's great, 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 just a little website breakdown, it's disingenuous and it's completely misleading. We didn't raise 18 new taxes. We didn't cut $500 billion from Medicare. We did it in a bipartisan, bicameral manner with business leaders and everybody else involved. Not like they did, as you know, of all people, when they rammed it through, when I got there, through reconciliation, using parliamentary maneuvers to give us a plan that we in Massachusetts, quite frankly, don't want. And a lot of people in Massachusetts are getting those notices, and we're having to give up the plans that we fought very hard for in Massachusetts. So it's shame on him for coming to Massachusetts, especially in the Red Sox playing, and the traffic jams are unbelievable. You can't imagine how many, and now he's going to a fundraiser. He's going to just totally mess up traffic forever. So it's just wrong.
You know, Scott, I do want to follow something else he said that caught me, maybe because I follow the business community pretty closely, that a lot of the people who are getting sticker shock or premium shock are getting it because they were covered by bad apple plans. In other words, those companies that were giving you bare bones coverage, and then when you have to include all this other stuff, you're getting sucked to the nose. The fact of the matter, these were not bad apple plans. A lot of them were very pristine, what we call Cadillac plans, what I think the president calls Cadillac plans. And they find out right now that to make the switch, if they've been dumped or they're forced out, it's going to cost them prohibitively more. Now, that's not a bad apple plan. That's a business saying, this is the rate it's going, and this is the alternative you have, and you are screwed.
Yeah, listen, the president is misleading the American people. There's a complete lack of trust between the American consumer right now, the people who are looking for health care, and the administration. Whether it's the website, whether it's, hey, don't forget, you're not going to have to change your plan, you're not going to have to change your doctors, it's not going to cost you a penny more. Well, those are all lies. And in fact, that's in fact what's happening right now. And it's unfortunate. If I was giving any recommendations to the president right now, I'd say, sir, pull everything back, go on hiatus for about 3 to 4 months, get an American company, first of all, to do the website instead of a Canadian company and who we paid $400 million plus. Let's fix it, let's test it, and let's roll it out incrementally like we did in Massachusetts. And if we find any tweaks, then let's fix it incrementally. Let's not just say to everybody, hey, by the way, if you don't get on, it's too bad, tough luck. And if you get on, hey, congratulations, but they're still going to pay more money. They need to fix it. There's a lack of trust right now, and there's a serious credibility problem.
But I think it's more than that, Scott, and Dr. I'll raise this with you as well. It's a lack of basic business knowledge problem. I mean, anytime...
So there's no one there who has any...
Well, but here's what worries me.
Sorry, Neil,
I'll take it up with you. And Dr., if you don't mind, I want to hit you on this because it's just a basic business issue as well as a medical issue. I remember covering this battle in Washington. We were there. I should have gotten a condo in Washington. I was there so often. And one of the things that came up is this notion that you could cover those with pre-existing conditions. A lot of Americans are for that. You can keep your kids on your policy longer. A lot of Americans are for that. You could get all of this and not have to pay more for it. Well, that might seem like an ideal, and it's a wonderful goal, but to assume that premiums won't go up in the face of that, or that companies now facing all of this are not going to raise premiums as a result of that, is naive at best. And so when this happens and the reality of these new requirements happen and companies do have to then jettison policyholders or let them know it's going to cost you a lot more, they're not the ones being the villains. They're following the law and the new requirements, and that is prompting this move onto other exchanges and this sticker shock that Americans are experiencing. I just think, Doctor, it would have been a lot more crucial and truthful for the president to say then, you can't get something for nothing. For those of you who get this kind of coverage and we want to expand all this other coverage, you are going to pay more for that. It's simple, man.
Regards to Scott Brown. Good to see you again. There is no question that he is pandering and taking advantage of the fact that a lot of people have not studied these issues very deeply. And, I again, will say that it's going to become increasingly apparent what a problem this is. I just hope that all of those people who are rabidly behind the president and calling everybody else every name under the sun and thinking that they're evil will remember what I'm saying right now and see if maybe they change their minds.
Scott Brown, where's this going?
And Neil, can I
Sure.
add something to that? I think you're absolutely right. We have all those coverages. Our kids are able to be covered up to 25. We could have changed it to 26. We already addressed pre-existing care and preventative care. We already did it in the Massachusetts plan. Every other state should have that option. To think that the federal plan, this one-size-fits-all, with the federal government who can't seem to get out of its own way in almost everything it does, run a health care plan, a national health care plan, forget about it.
Senator, thank you. Doctor, thank you very much. The reality is